Alright, it's time for another installment of My Two Cents. Today's topic is infinite infinity. This is the second time I've tried to do this thing because the first one was horrible. So, start with classes. And I'm going to start by reading the actual infinite infinity. Before I do that, explain exactly what infinite infinity is, because I'm sure by now you're trying to figure out what this crazy dude is talking about. Infinite infinity is a subject matter that I have to come up with. It is my opinion of the theory of everything. It explains everything, literally. I mean, it literally explains everything. If you can follow along with what I'm suggesting, what I'm trying to portray, you will realize, like, wow, this dude is actually explaining everything. This is amazing. So, there's a lot to cover, and I will be putting these videos together in a very abstract way. But I want to start with a foundation of what infinite infinity is. What I'll be doing is I'll be using terms from high-level science, as far as like quantum physics, M theory, string theory, regular physics, relativity, special relativity. I'll be dealing with things as far as gravity, magnetism, spin states of molecules and atoms and photons, subatomic particles, like quarks, gluons. Probably won't get into the bosons and all that stuff because they're not really necessary in this abstract edition, unless of course there are requests for it. But the foundation itself is based on the idea of location, because everything has to be located somewhere. That's why I put together the existence is inside of non-existence, because location is important. Special relativity specifically deals with location and the interaction of things within a location. But that's another topic for another day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by reading to you my description of infinite infinity. Now, infinite infinity is, I'm incorrectly using dimensions. Dimensions, the dimensions, as far as if you look them up on Wikipedia or something, is geometric volume. If you know anything about geometry, you understand that lines, verts, lines, and planes and cubes form geometry. So the first dimension is a line, the second dimension is a plane, and the third dimension is a cube. We live in a three-dimensional universe. When you look at theories like string theory, M theory, you look at like sci-fi shows and they talk about different dimensions and different parallel universes of that nature. They're talking about mathematical geometry. When string theory and M theory say the fourth dimension, they're talking about mathematical geometry. The best example that I've ever seen about describing dimensions is a 90 degree. For instance, if you have a single point and you draw a line from that point, you draw a line at 90 degrees and you get the first dimension, with the point obviously being 0 dimensions. If you draw another line in relationship to the first line, you get another 90 degree line, and that is the second dimension. Now, if you draw a third line from that point, you get the third dimension, and you get a cube, which is the dimension we live in. We live in a three-dimensional world. Now, in M theory and string theory, when they say the fourth dimension, they're not talking about time. They're talking about drawing another 90-degree line. You can't do that in 3 dimensions. Just like on a sheet of paper, you can draw an isometric image or a perspective image, and you're prescribing it on a 2-dimensional sheet of paper, but it's never 3-dimensional. In our universe, you can't describe 4 dimensions in our universe. You can only do it mathematically. So that's what dimensions means in science and in mathematics and in the world of measuring, etc. There's no description for what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a hierarchy system of understanding the interactions and relationships between the realities of our locations. What I suggest on this scale is that there are 11 dimensions. The first 3 dimensions are spatial coordinates. The first 3 dimensions are spatial coordinates, length, width, and depth. Our universe, our existence, is based on 3 dimensions. We live in a 3-dimensional universe. There could be areas somewhere else that have 4 dimensions. There could be areas somewhere else that has 2 dimensions. But we live in 3 dimensions. And I'm not going to try to go into much about geometric dimensions because it's really almost next to impossible to explain in any rational manner with the limitations of being physically in 3 dimensions. The 4th dimension And I am going to use the term dimension, even though I know I'm using it incorrectly, and if anyone can help me come up with better definitions or descriptions, I would appreciate it. The fourth dimension is time. Time supersedes the third dimension. Now, time is best described as a magnitudinal force. Time is responsible for us moving. We move through time. Motion takes place through time. When you talk about geometry, this table has two lengths. When we talk about geometry, point A and point B can be traversed, as a motion. But point A and point B can be traversed as a fourth dimensional time. You can't have motion or movement without time in our universe. And the fourth dimension is in fact itself time. Time allows for movement and is it's a magnitudinal force that we use to describe the phenomenon that is time. For instance, when you're moving through a room from location A to location B, you're traveling through geometry, which is space, but you're able to do that because of time. I'll get back to that later. The fifth dimension is change. Now, the fifth dimension is a very abstract dimension because I consider it a law of physics. I consider change to be an actual fundamental force in our universe. I would consider change to be a fundamental force in the state of the theory of everything as well. And it's going to be difficult to understand, but I will go into detail on all this stuff and with a later video. What I will say for right now is change is the governing force of everything that takes place. All of the laws of physics are basically describing change in an abstract way, one way or another. Energy can't be created nor destroyed, it can only be changed from one form to another. Time itself changes from the past, from the past to the future. When you move, you physically, your physical location at A changes to your destination location at B. When you live, you die. Your life is changing from your birth to your death. The state of living and death is a change of rebirth. The day-night cycles of the planet are changed. The evolution of species over time has changed. Even God changed nothing into something. So change is a very fundamental force in our reality. I will go into more detail on that later, but I want to try to stay on topic. The sixth dimension is special relativity. Special relativity is the way that everything is described scientifically speaking. Special relativity is a way of thinking in a manner that is really observable. You can observe, and science is about observing and measuring. Special relativity and relativity allows you to observe and measure in a very abstract and accurate way. It's a thinking process. The sixth dimension is special relativity. I will go into more detail on that later, but you need to understand that the sixth dimension is very crucial to what I'm about to continue on. Now, seventh dimension is two sixth dimensions inside of the sixth dimension. The seventh dimension separates two special relativity frames. So what that means is if my fist is the sixth dimension, let's say my fist is a car. You got car A and you got car B at 6 dimensions. Well, if you put these two cars inside of a car, or if you put these two fists inside of a bigger fist, the bigger fist becomes the seventh dimension and surrounds the two fists. This is important because if you think of the sixth as any location as a sixth dimension, let's say your house is a sixth dimensional location. Your neighbor's house is also a sixth dimensional location. Your two houses are inside of your city, which is the seventh dimension. Two locations inside of a location, the two locations are self-describing as a sixth dimension, and the location that they're within is self-describing as a seventh dimension. The universe, being self-describing of all locations inside of the universe, is the seventh dimension. The eighth dimension is parallel universes and is what I like to call the multiverse. All parallel dimensions of our universe is the eighth dimension of multiverse. And I'll go into more detail on this stuff later. The ninth dimension is the omniverse. The omniverse describes existence and is the conceptual embodiment parent of all possible children multiverse. with all possible inherent laws of physics. It is impossible for any child multiverse to inherit laws of physics from its parent omniverse, which its parent omniverse does not have. What that basically means is the universe as a seven-dimensional reference frame, the universe as a six-dimensional reference frame, as I've described as being dynamic geometric forces governed by dynamic geometry governed by dynamic forces, which is known laws of physics in space-time. The universe as a six-dimensional reference frame is inside of all of its shared parallel universes. All of those parallel universes are inside of the omniverse. So the universe and all its parallel universes are inside the multiverse, and they share. The universe is inside of the multiverse. The multiverse is inside of the omniverse. The omniverse shares its volume or its actual seven-dimensional frame with all other multiverses, and all other multiverses are parallel universes to our own, and with the understanding that parallel means literally next to and never interacting. That is the multiverse. The multiverse are universes that never actually interact. Parallel universes are universes that are connected somehow. And like I said, the words themselves are very difficult at this point, and I'll be working on them later. I'm going to go into more detail with other videos, I promise. So you can scream at me, I'm waiting for it, but I promise I will clear all this stuff up. The 10th dimension is omni-existence, which encompasses all possible existence. Omni-existence is existence for existence. I have another video called Existence Inside of Non-Existence. The omni-existence describes apparent existence for all children omniverses. Omni-existence comprises everything that exists, including all possible laws of physics, reality, space, time, and change, including all that is physical, energy, and conscious. Omni-existence is the embodiment of infinite realities. Omni-existence is where we exist. It is the hierarchy. It is the seven-dimensional existence for everything that exists. And it separates the 11th dimension, and it separates existence in all its sub-existences, all children existences, from infinite and infinity, which is the 11th dimension, which is non-existence. And it is inside of infinite and infinity, which is the 11th dimension. Infinite and infinity describes the apparent existence of child omni-existence. Infinite indefinity is a state of infinite possibilities and non-existence, which gives rise to infinite possibilities of child omni-existence. What that means is that the nature of existence as a dualistic self-evident concept is that things either exist or don't exist. If you exist, you don't not exist. If you don't exist, if you do not exist, then you can't exist. You can't have it both ways if you think in a logical abstract manner. So things either exist or don't exist. If I exist, then whatever is not in my existence doesn't exist and is in non-existence. For instance, infinite and infinity as a concept existed for me, but didn't exist for you until now. Where it was before it existed for me was in non-existence. Once I brought it into existence, once I brought it into being, it exists, and now it is part of existence. And now as I share it, it will continue to exist. If you can think of information, and here's a simple thought experiment for infinite and infinity, and then I'll go into more detail on everything with other videos. If you can think of information as being existing, you have to destroy the information itself for something to not exist. For instance, a child is born, lives a life, and dies. When a child dies, the child doesn't stop existing, the child simply no longer is alive. The legacy of that child or that person that it left as it lived is information that showed that it in fact existed, which supersedes death. Death is just the act of no longer sharing the same time space with other living beings. But the information is still there. Alexander the Great, Albert Einstein, Galileo, the Judeo-Christian God, these people or things, these mind, bodies, and spirit left information about themselves in our existence, and it still exists. When you destroy the information about them, that's when they stop existing, and that's when they go to infinite infinity. They came from infinite infinity. All things did. Everything that exists came from non-existence. There's a math equation that goes 0 plus 0 can't equal 1. It's used to describe the state of existence and non-existence. It's used to suggest that the Big Bang couldn't have happened because nothing plus nothing can't equal something. And that's actually true. But the problem is that the equation is wrong. The equation should actually be, if I can remember correctly, x equals 1 plus y, plus or minus y. The reason why is because we exist. Existence is 1. We don't know why we exist. That's x. And we don't know where our existence is going or what it's turning into. That is another variable, which is plus minus y. Plus minus y is the change of what is actually here. You can't say nothing plus nothing can't equal something when something exists. That's wrong. That's not logical. You can't say that, oh, well, there's no such thing as self-rising because there's no evidence to suggest self-rising when you are the evidence that something happened. Something occurred, otherwise there would be no existence and there would be no thought process trying to explain or understand existence itself. So you can't just rule it out by just throwing a math equation inaccurately at it. The equation should be x equals 1 plus minus y. That's the actual accurate description of understanding the theory of everything. Because we're here, we're not going anywhere, and we're somewhere. And that is my 2 cents.